Hello class, today we will be taking notes on concentrations of solutions. But let's just do a little bit of review. We've already learned that a solution is when we take a substance that is being dissolved, called the solute, into the solvent, which is the liquid that is doing the dissolving. What we are learning today is concentrations, which means how much solute we put into how much solvent. Let's begin our T-notes. The concentration of a solution is simply how much solute you put into a specific amount of solvent. This ratio of solute to solvent creates a certain level or a certain concentration of that solution. We have two different kinds of solution depending on the amount of solute and solvent. This can either be a dilute solution, which is a solution that has a small amount of solute in comparison to a large amount of solvent. It can also be considered a concentrated solution. A concentrated solution is a solution that has a large amount of solute in a small amount of solvent. When we talk about a dilution, we're talking about a solution that has, again, a specific amount of solute and mixing it into a specific amount of solvent. For example, if we have a different amount of solute, but the same amount of solvent, we can create something called a dilute solution, which means it's not very strong, or a concentrated solution, which is much more strong. It has more solute. For example, here, if I had 1 teaspoon of salt in 100 milliliters of water, the amount of particles in this amount of water would be less than the amount of particles in 10 teaspoons of salt in the same amount of water. The weaker solution we call a dilute solution. The stronger concentration of solute to solvent is called a concentrated solution. One of the telltale signs of being dilute or concentrated can be color, and we can see this with these solutions that have various amounts of solute. With the least amount of solute, you can see that this solution is the lightest color possible. And as we continue to add more and more solute into the solvent, it becomes darker and darker and darker. So color can be a telltale sign of concentrations, of being either dilute or concentrated. Now we mentioned having different amounts of solute in the same amount of solvent. We can also create concentrated and dilute solutions by using the same amount of solute but having different amounts of solvent. For example, here we have 18 particles of solute, if you were to count up each of these particles, in 100 milliliters of solvent. We call this a concentrated solution because it has a certain amount of solute for a smaller amount of solvent. Whereas over here we have the same number of particles but in twice as much volume of the solvent. So because of this, we have more solvent for the same amount of particles. We would call this solution dilute. Here is another example where we have different amounts of solvent with the same amount of solute. So the solute particles are blue and the solvent particles are pink. Here we can see that there is more solvent than there is solute, and it does take on a darker color. Over here for the dilute solution, it looks lighter, and we can tell here that there are less particles of the solute versus that of the solvent, which is the pink particles. This would be a dilute solution, and this would be a concentrated solution. Thank you for watching. Be sure you understand the content in these notes. Go back, rewatch the video if you need to, revise your notes, make sure that you come to class prepared to review and use this. Have a great day.